Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Ay. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Ay. Red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
You're muted. There you go. I can hear you. I can't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you. Like a mime.
How about now?
That's Chris. There you are.
That's me. How are you this morning, Mo?
Doing well, friend. Doing well.
No complaints?
No, I don't. I'm not a big complainer. I'm a positive guy. I always think that there's always a better day the next day.
That's what I like to hear. I appreciate everyone who is making us part of their morning routine this morning. Whether you're doing that live on Facebook, maybe you're live over on YouTube, or maybe you're live on Roku TV, thanks to the wonderful people over at Northeast Sports Productions. Mo, before we jump into everything that I want to jump into today, every now and again, we bring up some current news stories and we bring up some trending stuff that, as I'm doing show prep, I just happen to find interesting. So, Mo, let me ask you this. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the cult classic Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I never watched the other ones because I heard they were horrible, but I did watch the first movie, and mind you, it's going back in the day, but it was entertaining.
Mo, we have a present day Weekend at Bernie's situation, okay? Follow me here. It's about to be a roller coaster ride. According to TMZ.com, a Brazilian woman tried to pull a Weekend at Bernie's with her deceased uncle, his body, in a wheelchair, into a local bank and tried to get out a loan in his name. Erica de Sousa Veria Nunez got caught on camera earlier this week in Rio de Janeiro, where she appeared to have a corpse with her as she attempted to secure financing for a $3,400 loan, says the police report. The video, which is available on TMZ.com, is super eerie as she tries to force her deceased uncle into signing paperwork with his limp hand. Mo, I cannot make this up. She is also seen in the video speaking to her deceased uncle at various times, asking him questions about whether or not he can hear her and if she is listening to him, as she is instructing him to sign the documents to get the loan, even though, for obvious reasons, he is clearly not talking back to her. She also attempts to hold up his head straight as it is constantly falling off to the side. Thankfully, the employees at this bank in Rio de Janeiro were not convinced of this situation, and ultimately they did call the police, in which time Erica was arrested. She is currently being held without bail as she has been charged with theft through fraud and embezzlement, as well as corpse abuse. Mo.
So-
What?
So she pushes him into the bank. Obviously, he's deceased, but she's talking to him, and I'm assuming she's grabbing his hand and trying to
Yes.
make his hand grab the pen
While
and
also holding up his head to make it
Right.
look like
right, and his head obviously is falling back,
right.
and what did she think that the employees were going to think? Like he must have been a real bender.
He's
You know what I mean?
he's tired, but he
he's
had
like-
to come
he's like,
get this loan
right.
real quick.
Your uncle is so tired he can barely hold his head up, and there are some twisted people in the world, man. I mean, and the thing about it is she's going to jail, but in jail they talk to each other. Her story is going to make the other prisoners go, "You're sick, me. You're sick." Like, wow, what? Don't sit by me.
Reports say that he had already been deceased for a handful of hours, which means, Mo, this plan came together pretty quickly. Pretty quickly, we got the idea of, hey, let's go to the bank and Mo, like, it wasn't even a big loan. I know Rio is not a wealthy economy. I know that $3,000 American dollar there goes a lot further than $3,000 goes here in the US.
For sure.
But Mo, it's not like this was a $1 million scheme. This was just a handful of money. So I think that's more. It makes the story even more interesting.
Well, that's what's crazy about it. $3,400, and now you're going to be in prison for $3,400.
Right.
And what I'm hearing is she asked him for the loan before,
And he said no.
And he said no multiple times. And then upon his passing, a light came on in her head, like, I can turn that no into a yes right now.
Gonna get that now.
Right.
I'm get it.
Right. I'm gonna get that $3,400 right now. Probably dressed him and everything and started wheeling him off. That's a time when you need a true friend to go, Erica, don't do this.
Right.
Don't do
and
this.
then for reasons I think we can all assume, I don't think we're making a jump here. The Rio de Janeiro police are also investigating these circumstances around the passing of the uncle.
Yeah, because he said no to Erica multiple times. I'm assuming, and Erica was like, so it's a no, huh?
Okay. And to Gene's point in the chat, why are we going 3,400? Why not at least 35?
Why not break the bank and go for I don't know. That's a very specific number. See, it's times like this when you go, if she had access to his accounts and knew all his passwords.
If where was Mizuhara?
Right, where was, if only she were an interpreter. If only she had that kind of power.
See, if she thought about this 3 days prior, she could have turned off the notifications. She could have maybe impersonated him on the phone. This could have been a whole different situation.
She doesn't watch a lot of TV because she
clearly not.
She could have done what Mizuhara did and did everything over the phone and online.
Right, and then maybe she would have got $4,000.
Maybe.
Just saying. Mo, yesterday we talked about Bill Belichick and the fact that he is essentially trying to name his next coaching gig. He has listed the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants as potential landing spots. This is all part of several Bill Belichick stories that have come out over the past 2 days. Gene, I would assume so. I would assume so. Because Face ID is
interesting question.
Face ID isn't checking whether or not you're alive.
Right. Hey, no pulse. No.
Right. Face ID isn't like, you're not fooling us.
Why? Yeah, it's a twisted story. And just for everybody out there listening, we are not making light of the uncle's passing.
We are not.
Just the overall situation. You have to admit, this is one of the worst executed crimes I've ever heard of. And for the amount of money, it makes it so much worse.
So ridiculous. And let's be honest, it's awkward the next time she has to, interact with any of her family.
Well, you already know she's excommunicado. There's no reunion, there's no cookout. There is no family function that Erica's welcome to.
So Bill Belichick is handpicking his next squad, but this is a series of Bill Belichick stories that came out. He is also apparently on the verge of joining Omaha Productions. We mentioned here a few weeks ago here on the morning show that there was this idea by Omaha Productions and Peyton Manning to launch another Manning cast-esque type show. The rumor was Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. No idea if that's what he's going to do with Omaha Productions. He is going to be part of the NFL draft coverage coming up next week. That came out yesterday. And Mo, it also came out yesterday that ESPN has put together this in-depth look as far as his departure from the Patriots, his subsequent job search, and why he never got a gig during this most recent coaching cycle. During this, it has come out, this is all alleged because there is no confirmation of it, Mo, but the rumor and innuendo says that Robert Kraft may have been a big reason why Bill Belichick did not get a job with the Atlanta Falcons. The rumor and innuendo says that Robert Kraft had a conversation with the owner of the Atlanta Falcons and basically said, be careful. Be careful with Bill. Be careful with what he says during the interview process. Don't let him think that he isn't going to want things a certain way. If he's trying to lead you down the path, that he's flexible and that he's not going to want control and that he's not going to want his people, he's lying to you. That was the message. Now, in all fairness, Mo, that wasn't a don't hire Bill Belichick message. That wasn't a Bill Belichick is a bad head coach message. That was simply I've worked with Bill for the better part of 20 plus years. I know how he is. If he's saying he's different now, owner to owner, he's not. So don't put any credibility if he's saying that. If he's not saying that and he's being open with you and he's saying he wants all these things, that's the true Bill. So, here we are. Obviously, Robert Kraft has come out and said that he never said those things about Bill Belichick. In fact, he then pointed to quotes that he made in the media in which he was supporting Bill, and he wanted Bill to land the Atlanta job. Mo, two things can be right at the same time. I believe he wanted Bill to land the Atlanta job, but I also believe that the Owners Club is the Owners Club for a reason, Mo, and they have each other's backs, and they're out there looking out for each other, and they're out there protecting their bottom lines. And I have no doubt in my mind that after 20 plus years with the Patriots, of course, Arthur made a call to Robert Kraft and said, hey, Robbie, what's going on here? What really happened with Bill leaving the Patriots? What's the actual story? I want him in the building. Here's what he's telling us. I 100% believe that conversation took place, Mo, and I 100% believe Kraft said, if he's telling you he wants no power, he is full of BS because he wants all the power.
I fully believe that what Robert Kraft said, that's true. That's who Bill Belichick is. And remember, Chris, when he was going through the interview process with Atlanta, there were reports that employees and upper management in Atlanta went to Arthur Blank and said they were uncomfortable because they were like, this guy's going to bring in his people. He's going to want his people in place because he's not going to come here to be just a coach, right? He's coming here to be the coach, the GM, or as some of the reports said, he wanted to be the coach and he was willing to accept a different role where I'm the coach, but I don't have to answer to the GM, right? Like I don't have GM power, but he's not bossing me either, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, I do think the owners get amongst each other. That conversation was had, and Arthur Blank came away thinking it's not worth the headache. You know what? I don't. If I don't feel completely 100 invested in bringing him in, I'm walking away. Look, I'm not saying Robert Kraft kicked his back in, but I don't think he did him any favors either.
Gene is on. Gene is on one in the comments today.
And by the way, yeah, I mean, Robert Kraft, he does like those. So yeah,
maybe Deshaun set one up for him. I don't know.
I can't even.
Listen, takes one to know one. If we want to go down that road this morning, Mo.
I do not. I'm good.
We talked about some WWE stuff yesterday. Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer is a funny man. So Dave Meltzer has been a wrestling insider for the better part of 3 decades. It might even be longer than that. I may be closer to 4 decades at this point. But over the years, Dave Meltzer has fallen out of favor somewhat within the WWE community. He's always had his detractors. He's always had his naysayers. If you've ever listened to Eric Bischoff talk about Dave Meltzer, you know for a fact that they will never break bread together because Eric Bischoff hates the ground that Dave Meltzer walks on. And a lot of that comes from the fact that Dave made stuff up about WCW back in the day. And Dave just made stuff up about Eric Bischoff. And Eric has been very straightforward since he started his podcast about the lies. Because what Eric does is they look back at different moments in WCW history and, different pay-per-views and time frames. And one of the things they consistently do is they bring up the rumor and innuendo from that time period. And who was writing a lot of that stuff in that time period? It was Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer newsletter. They were writing a lot of the inside news during the time that Eric has been very straightforward was not the inside news and couldn't have been further from the truth. But that's what Dave does. And that's still what Dave does today. And he seems to have his hooks more into the AEW world, Mo, which makes sense because it seems if you're looking at which company is more buttoned up today, it's definitely not AEW. They're definitely not buttoned up over there, if you will. But he still does some WWE stuff, and he made the news this week because he came out after Monday Night Raw, and he thought that the segment in which The Miz and R-Truth were gifted new World Tag Team titles was ridiculous. He thought the segment was too long. He thought the crowd was absolutely dead during the segment, and he cannot believe that WWE continues to use R-Truth the way they are using him. And to that, Mo, all I have to ask is, what was he watching? Now, keep in mind, the show was in Canada. So whenever you go to Canada or you go to another country, there is always the opportunity that some stuff is going to fall a little flat. And I know that Canada isn't that far away from us, right. But when you go to different countries, at times humor runs a little bit differently. That's just the way these things work. When you're overseas in Australia, there's a pay-per-view coming up in France. There are some things that are funny regardless, and there are some things that are more for a U.S. crowd than they are for a foreign crowd. Let's start there. Number 2, if you look at the videos and the fan reaction from the segment, it was a success. Number 3, you could hear laughter throughout the entire segment. When R-Truth looked Triple H in the face and called him by a different wrestler's name and almost broke Triple H. The GM broke. Adam broke. He was over there. He had to walk out of camera sight because he did break. Triple H broke, but tried to cover it up by acting like he was clearing his throat. There are things that are done specifically for the audience in attendance. There are things that are done specifically for the viewing audience at home. There are things that are done specifically for the boys. And what it looked like to me, Mo, is this was a segment where R-Truth was trying to break Triple H. and he did it. And for the viewing audience at home that could probably see that a lot better than the audience in attendance, I think this was more for the millions watching at home than for the 10,000 people that were there in attendance, even though it was still getting a reaction in attendance. But at the end of the day, Mo, it's one segment on a 3-hour show. Right. That's what we're coming for, Dave Meltzer. That's what we're coming after. Just go talk about AEW. Knock it off.
I actually enjoyed the segment. So maybe I have a warped sense of humor. I disagree with Dave Meltzer. I think the way WWE is using R-Truth, I think they're maxing out what he could be in terms of a character and entertaining at this stage of his career. Remember, R-Truth is 52. He's in incredible shape. I mean,
body of a 30-year-old.
Right. Incredible. And the athleticism of one. But I think they're using him in a terrific way. He seems like one of those guys that if you hung around him, he's naturally funny. He just has that thing. And I thought that he did set out to see if he can make Triple H and everybody around him break. And you can see Miz smiling and Miz holding it in, but Miz enjoyed it too, but he didn't break. I think R-Truth is just an entertaining guy, and I enjoyed the segment. I think Dave Meltzer is trying too hard to look for something negative. I have no problem with how they're using R-Truth. I think they've helped revive his career. He's a champion again. He's got a belt around his waist. He's relevant again in terms of his career and what he's done. And I thought initially, Chris, that maybe R-Truth and Miz would have a short title run, but I don't know because the fans like them. They're drawn to them. So I think they hold on to the titles. You could call it an upset, but I think they hold on to them a little bit longer than most would. So again, I enjoyed the segment. I think Dave Meltzer, like you said, go focus on what Tony Khan says and deal in that world. But I think WWE with Triple H and company are doing, they're straight.
Last night we had some more NBA action, and injuries keep piling up in the league. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's start with the Bulls and the Hawks. Mo, it was only a handful of seasons ago that the Hawks were losing in the conference finals. Now after that, they went back-to-back first-round playoff losses, and now they are play-in loss. We already had rumors that they were going to lose possibly one, if not both, of their stars from this team. Mo, is this simply a situation like a little baseball reference? Even though JG isn't here, the Marlins win a World Series, and next season they tear the team back down to a AAA club. Is that what we kind of saw with the Hawks? The Hawks kind of they hit a ceiling. Maybe they burst through the ceiling, but that's not where they're meant to be. So they burst through the ceiling. They make it to the conference finals. Everyone's like, look at the young stars on this team. They're set up for the next 3 or 4 years. They're going to be contenders, especially in that conference. First round playoff loss, losing in the play-in. And now it looks like they're about to lose all their talent during the offseason. What do you make of the Hawks?
The year that they went to the conference finals, the mistake that a lot of people made was they thought this is the beginning of something. The Hawks are going to be one of the contenders in the East for the next foreseeable future. And the reality was it was just a great run. They weren't a great team. It was a great run. And a lot of things came together to work in their favor. But it's not an accident that the following season, first round exit. The following season after that, first round exit. Because there is a difference. I know a lot of people say, well, Trae Young can do some of the same things Steph Curry can do. Absolutely can. He might even be more talented, but he's not a winning basketball player. Trae Young he doesn't know how to play without the basketball. So he's not going to cut off the ball. He's not going to go set a screen for somebody else and free somebody else up. He doesn't know how to play without the basketball. And it started to affect them in recent years. They tried to put a Band-Aid on a sinking ship by bringing in DeJounte Murray, but the combination of Murray and Trae Young, that's a horrible combination. It doesn't work. They thought we'll bring in a defensive-minded guard and he'll cover up for some of his flaws. It didn't change anything. and they actually got worse. Now they're in the play-in game. Well, now they're home. They're actually not in the play-in game.
They're home.
They have lost and they're home. And the Bulls aren't a great basketball team. They have some talented players, but they're not an elite team. You're not where you are if you're a great team. But they blew the doors off of Atlanta last night. It was a close first half. They came out in the third quarter, game over. They just blitzed them. Kobe White, 42 points. I mean, and he's had a great season, a great breakout season, but no one on Atlanta could guard that man. He was just going through everybody they had. Now, I know Hawks fans will point out they didn't have Jalen Johnson and Okongwu, who are a big part of their rotation. They weren't going to win last night. They weren't going to win. This is a sinking ship. I don't think they lose DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. I think they trade them. I think they move off of them. They need a full reset. There is no benefit to bringing that team back whole if you're going to get the same product over and over, and they will.
And Mo, you're right. Hawks fans, I saw it this morning on a couple of social media boards. Hawks fans are talking about who they didn't have last night. But let me remind you, you were 10th in your conference. You were under 500. It's not like you didn't have these players all season. It's not like you had a winning record going into this game, and then you were down a couple of players, and as a result, here we are. You were a bad team all year, Mo, with your full team at certain points, completely healthy at certain points, and you were still 10th in your conference, not even a 500 club. So you're looking at 3 years ago, conference finals, consecutive years of the playoffs with better records than this, first round exits, and now we're down to under 500, couldn't make the playoffs, couldn't get out of the play-in. Oh, by the way, against another team who was under 500. It's also not like you got matched up with a team that was over 500 that was just superior to you.
Right.
You got your doors blown off by another bad team. Like, I'm sorry, Chicago fans. You looked great yesterday playing a team that was really bad. Now you're going to go up, like, no, you know.
They're going to play Miami.
You might do okay.
You know what? That game could go either way.
It
really
might.
could.
It can.
It could go. Here's the funny thing. If Chicago were to beat Miami, Boston, we would both agree Boston will sweep Chicago, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But if they played Miami, you never know, because Miami's got this strange mental hold over Boston. Yeah. That could end up easily being a 6-game series inexplicably for whatever reason. The funny thing is, we were talking the other day with Will, and he was talking about how, he's not a big fan of Billy Donovan. And I was thinking the same thing. Quinn Snyder is supposed to be one of the best coaches in basketball, and he can't even work miracles with this roster. And I know he's a good coach, but when you have talent and you can't direct it, or there's no system in place that fits their skill sets, the roster construction is horrible. That's on Danny Ferry and company. I think you have to blow this up and do a real rebuild. If you're Chicago, you ride this wave until it comes to an end, which could be very well when you play Miami. But I just think that it's not shocking that Atlanta lost. Not to me.
Our other playing game was the 76ers and the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler was injured in that game. He is getting an MRI today. There is a fear that the injury could be significant. No decision has been made for his status for the next game for the Heat, but there seems to be several sources coming out saying that he is most likely going to be out indefinitely because of the seriousness of this injury. You look at the game last night with the 76ers and the Heat, and it ended up being a 1-point finish. But, Mo, it was a game where the 76ers had to come back and win that game in the fourth quarter. So you have the injury happen to Butler in the first half, and you enter the fourth quarter, and the 76ers are still down by 5 or 6 points. They end up pulling it out in the end, but by no means was that easy work for the 76ers. Doesn't necessarily mean anything moving forward. I'm not trying to sit here and say that, the 76ers, because they had a tough time with the Heat means they're not going to make an impact in moving forward in the playoffs. But the 76ers are still a very good team, and they're going to move on now. Now, the only tough part for the 76ers is because of the injuries in the season and the fact that you're going into this thing as a lower seed, your path is going to be a little different than what it probably should have been. But let's start there. Moving forward, what do you make of the 76ers in the next round? What do you make of their path going through the playoffs? What is the ceiling for this team based on the projected competition that they're going to have to play?
It really depends on the health of Embiid. We talked about this going into that playing game. I thought last night he labored. I thought that he struggled. I thought he hurt his team a lot in the first half because he was trying to force up shots. Look, if you told me that Embiid and Maxey were going to go 12 for 45, I would have told you that they would have got the doors blown off of them. But they managed to hang in there because they got a lot of good contributions from their bench. They had a big game from Nicholas Batum, over 20 points. He made multiple threes, played good defense. They won because of the others, that word that people like to use, not because Embiid and Maxey were great. I'll say this. If Philly's going to beat New York, there better be a better version of Embiid, because if the guy that showed up last night in the play-in shows up, they're not going to win that series. They walk into that series with a clear advantage if they get MVP caliber Embiid. But if they walk in there with the guy that I saw last night, New York's going to win the series. Now, it still might be a 6-game series, but New York's going to win the series. They're facing a team in New York who plays defense, probably one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. They get into your bodies and they run. And you're talking about what Jalen Brunson can do offensively. I'm one of those people. I had an argument with some of our friends on the network, and I said, I think Jalen Brunson should be first-team All-NBA. I do. I really do. If you look at his season and what he's done, he should be first-team All-NBA. He is the engine to everything the Knicks do. If the Sixers can somehow disrupt him or make him less efficient, that'll go a long way in them winning the series. Because when you look at their roster top to bottom, the Knicks, they only have one true shot creator, and that's Jalen Brunson. Everybody else benefits off of what he does. I think the Knicks have better athletes. I think they're the better defensive team. But if Maxey comes out, Chris, and let's say Maxey can offset what Brunson does, and you get MVP caliber Embiid, that's how the Sixers win the series. But it literally centers around the health of Joel Embiid. I expect a better version of Embiid, so I'm going to pick the Sixers in 6 games.
And then we look at the Heat and what they have coming up. Obviously, regardless of who wins that game, Mo, they're playing Boston. Like you said, the Heat seem to have something over Boston, but we're looking at the health of Butler. We don't know what that's going to look like. But can the Bulls do it? Can the Bulls, can they make that happen? What do you see going on there?
Look, if they can get the production they got last night again versus Miami, if they're going to get Kobe White, DeRozan, and Vucevic shooting and playing at that high a level, yeah, Miami's going to be in trouble. Look, they won't admit it. You know they won't admit it. But nobody's rooting for Chicago more than Boston.
That's true. That is very true. Mo, people in the sporting world kind of looked at the NBA a little sideways when the commissioner of the National Basketball Association came out, and he basically said, listen, we understand that there is a gambling issue in sports. We understand that there are a rash of athletes who are testing those boundaries, but he drew a very hard line. He said, if it happens here in the NBA, the player is going to be banned. We will definitely investigate it. We will give the player every opportunity to prove that they are innocent if, allegations or speculation comes up. But if it's proven and we feel confident that it took place, there is going to be a very swift and strict punishment that happens as a result. Well, the NBA put their money where their mouth was, Mo, because they announced yesterday that Jontay Porter, a two-way player recently under contract with the Toronto Raptors, has been banned from the NBA. A league investigation found that Porter violated league rules by disclosing confidential information to sports bettors, limiting his own participation in one or more games for betting purposes. Oh, and then he also was betting on NBA games. What happened? A couple things here. There was a couple of suspicious bets, Mo. Like I just said, he was a two-way player, and over a 2-day period, there was a lot of action on his minutes, and there was a lot of action on his stat production, which I know what people are thinking, like, what? Someone just couldn't have felt like, they got a line on Jontay Porter? No. No one feels like they just magically got a line on Jontay Porter.
Right.
There was an $80,000 bet that was part of a parlay that was placed on Porter in a game that he exited in about 3.5 minutes because of an eye injury from the week before. That turned into a $1.1 million win, which, by the way, was not paid out because it was flagged as being suspicious, Mo. So apparently he was sharing his injuries. He was sharing his playing time. He was purposely manipulating his own playing time so that others could benefit off of it. I'm sure he was going to be getting a cut of that as well. And then he himself, Mo, was also betting. He placed 13 bets on NBA games using an associate's online betting account. The bets ranged in size from $15 to $22,000 for a total of $54,000 waged, and he ended up winning $76,000. So he had a net gain of plus $21,965. Maybe Mizuhara should have hooked up with Jontay because Jontay at least understood how to win when betting on the sport, as opposed to going, 40 plus million in the hole. But you know what? Jontay wasn't betting with Shohei money. Maybe if Jontay was betting with Shohei money, it would have been a different story. He was betting with his own money.
Right.
So
Right.
he wasn't probably taking the risks that Mizuhara was taking. But Mo, props to the NBA here. One, for initially making the statement of, if it happens, we're going to do this. Two, for drawing the hard line and actually doing it. Now, Mo, I think it helps the NBA that it was Jontay that decided to test that boundary, and it wasn't somebody with more of a name relevance or more of a star in the league.
That's what I was thinking about. What if that were Jason Tatum or Kevin Durant? That would be the full litmus test for the NBA, right? What are you going to do to Kevin Durant? Like, are they going to say, well, we've banned Kevin Durant? I like Adam Silver. I think it's great that they were all over this and they handled this quickly, but it's easy to do that when it's DeJounte, who's basically an irrelevant player. But would you do that with a signature player? What if it were Steph Curry or someone of that nature? Or would you say, well, Steph Curry's assistant actually was doing that?
Right.
Steph is a victim. I'm just saying.
You see, what happened was he was asking Steph like his opinions on games, and then he thought he was doing Steph a favor by placing those bets based on their sports conversations.
Right.
Steph didn't know what was going on. Come on, guys.
Right. And by the way, we're just having fun with this. In no way do I believe Steph Curry or any of those other guys we mentioned are involved in gambling. We're just putting out the point that it was easy to handle a guy who's not one of your signature players, because that's the true test.
And Mo, maybe you disagree, but I take a pretty hard stance in, I don't care if the NBA is sponsored by DraftKings. I don't care if the NBA has a deal with MGM. As a player in the National Basketball Association, as a player in the NFL, as a player in Major League Baseball, you cannot gamble. You cannot bet on sports. You specifically 100% cannot bet on your own sport, much less your own team, much less manipulate your playing time. so it impacts betting outcomes. Mo, for me, the fact that DraftKings or any of these other things sponsor the sports or they have deals, that's irrelevant to me. This argument of how are you going to ban someone from the NBA when you have DraftKings logos in your arenas? I don't care. That means nothing to me. Just because you have a deal with someone, when you're told don't do it and you decide to do it, that's the issue. If you want to go to a casino and play blackjack, go to a casino and play blackjack. If you want to go play some roulette and you want to gamble that way, go do that. Here's what you can't do. You can't bet on sports. That's all. For me, it's so simple. Like, that's what you just can't do. There are other ways. If you're jonesing for a gambling fix, Mo, there are ways you can do it and not get in trouble. But you chose to do it the way that was going to get you banned from the league. So all these people who are like, what are we telling these athletes? Because, you know, we can get money from DraftKings. The league can get money from DraftKings, but the players can't participate. Yeah, that's exactly what we're telling them.
That's exactly what's being said. And again, he didn't do this accidentally. This guy was faking injuries to impact the prop bets.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean? Like, he is not a victim. So I don't feel sorry for him or anyone else. It's really simple. You can't bet on sports. And I don't have a problem with DraftKings or any of those guys. I don't care. It's real simple. You don't bet on sports. If you want to bet on sports, get out of the league and bet on sports.
And most two-way players in the NBA, I would venture to say, when they're on the big squad, their focus is trying to stay on the big squad. Not Jonte. Jonte got up on the big squad, and his focus was, how can I turn this into a winning bet? How can I limit my playing time on the big squad so I can make some side money over here in the side hustle? I have a bigger issue with that. He's not even a full-time – he's not even a bench player who just has limited minutes, who is like, you know, might as well make some bets. You know, I'm not really playing over here. He's literally scrapping to stay on the big club. And while he's there, he's removing himself from the game, faking injuries so the prop bet can hit.
Right.
What are we doing?
Right. I guess he was like, well, you know, those prop bets have very little value in the G League. So, you know, when I get my chance, I'm going for it.
Mo, you mentioned Steph Curry. Obviously, the Warriors have a lot of questions coming up as they prepare for the NBA offseason. After the game, after the loss, after Klay's terrible performance in the play-in, Steve Kerr right away said that Klay needs to be back on this team. We need Klay. We didn't think much of it. We assumed that he would say things like that. Steph Curry came out yesterday. He said that he cannot envision a world where he is not playing on the same team with both Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. So Steve Kerr has locked in the we need Klay back here. Steph Curry has locked in the we need Klay back here. I put a little more validity into what Steph is saying because I think in that moment, Kerr needs to say that. Steph didn't necessarily need to come out and talk about Klay Thompson. He didn't necessarily need to make a statement about Klay Thompson. But at the same time, though, you can look at it and be like, well, of course Steph's going to say that. He's played with these guys for his career. He's won championship with these guys. He's going to battle with these guys. Of course, he can't imagine a world where this trio isn't together. That's not saying that Klay is coming back. That's not saying that he's going to fight for Klay to come back. He's just saying that he just can't imagine not playing with them. It could be as simple as that. Mo, if you're looking at the Warriors the way they are currently comprised, is there a world where this team has Klay, Steph, and Dre on it next season, and they're a playoff team? What would have to happen for those three to be here and the Warriors to be not a championship contender, a team that can go to the playoffs and win a first-round series?
So to be a relevant team, right?
Yes.
To matter.
Yes.
Well, one, Clay would obviously take a huge pay cut, and to me, that in there is block number one, because Clay has said he's willing to take lesser money, but lesser money doesn't mean he goes from making 25 million a year to making 10 million a year. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to do that. My guess is they lose Clay because there will be a team out there that will offer him close to what he's making now. There will be. There just will be. That the Warriors will be outbid. At some point, Clay is going to go, I want to come back really bad, guys, but that's an extra 13 million a year. And he's 34. This is going to be the last big contract he's going to get in his career. Draymond's already under contract, so they can only move him. The thing about moving Draymond, though, is what would you get in return? You're not going to get much because he has a unique skill set. He's not a star. He's not the kind of player you can build a team around. He is a complementary player who works perfectly in conjunction with what Steph Curry does. So Draymond's not going nowhere. That much I know, even though he can be a headache. I think they really do believe that Clay will be back. I think they intend to sign him. I just don't think the money. I think money is going to be the deciding factor. But as far as bringing them all three back, remember, you're talking about 34, 35, and 35. That's how old they are. And the young guy, because Andrew Wiggins is 28, I believe. So he's not an old man. But the problem with Andrew Wiggins is he lets his personal life really dictate what he does on the court. And he's had a lot of issues off the court. I think for sure Andrew Wiggins will be moved. And again, the best version of Andrew Wiggins can give you 18, 19 points a game, play very good defense. There's a role for him, but I think that the Warriors are moving off of Wiggins. My question looking at the Warriors, Chris, is Mike Dunleavy, who's the new GM, you don't have any draft capital. You don't really have any high-end trade assets. I don't know how you get better unless you do something drastic. Like, I know you want to bring Draymond and Clay back, but you got to shed contract to be able to go out and pursue a free agent, right? Because dynasties don't end well. Even the Bulls dynasty, I know they won and they went out on a high note, but they broke them up because they didn't want to bring them back. This team, it kind of reminds me of what the Celtics looked like at the end of their run. They kept Bird, Mikal, Parrish, DJ, kept them all together well into their 30s, and then the wheels fell off because they got old and they didn't have a succession plan. I think Golden State, they're in a weird purgatory, Chris. They want Steph. They know Steph's playing at a high level. They want to max out the last part of his career. But how do you do that unless you make tough decisions? Even if you don't get great value, move Draymond. Even if you don't get great value, move Clay. Bring in some younger pieces. I'm not saying you're going to win a title, but I think you need a youth movement and put it around Steph to where they're relevant. They're not a title contender, but they're not in the play-in either. They're like a 7th seed or a 6th seed that they don't have to be in the play-in fight because I just don't know where they go with the crew or the core that they have, because you watched Clay last night and I felt like, or the night before, he was pressing like he was auditioning. He's normally a really good catch and shoot guy. Clay, almost everything he was trying to do was off the bounce. That's not his game. He was pressing so hard. I think it just frustrated him. It frustrated the team. Same with Draymond. I thought Draymond didn't give much energy. It looked like their last dance. That's how it looked. It looked like they're saying goodbye. And Steve Kerr, you're right, Chris. After that game, what do? Hey, you guys didn't play well. You struggled. Coach, what are your thoughts on next year, Clay's situation? What is he going to do? Like, well, management's probably going to move off of Clay. And, he's not going to say that. He's a good coach. He's not going to say that. He's going to say what he should have said, like, we're not going to deal with things like that. We want Clay back. Clay's got to be back. Of course he's going to say that. Steph saying he can't envision a world without him. I believe Steph when he says that. But I got news for Steph. You better envision a world without him. You better. It's coming.
Mo, with Caitlin Clark and the other female college basketball stars that we've been talking about for the past few weeks, hitting the draft, landing on WNBA teams. One of the trending stories for the past few days has been the contracts. We know the terms of Caitlin Clark's contract. We know the terms of Angel Reese's contract. And what you're seeing a lot around the internet right now is Caitlin Clark's 4-year rookie deal being put up next to Wemby's 4-year rookie deal, which, by the way, are about $50.5 million apart from each other. We all know that female athletes are not paid the same way as their male counterparts in the same sports. Pick a sport. If there is a male-female comparison, they are not going to make the same money. That is no different than the NBA and the WNBA. Mo, what I don't seem to understand is this thought process that they should be paid the same. And if you listen to WNBA players, that's not even what they're saying. There are WNBA players, and 2 of them specifically play for the Aces, that spoke about this last season. And they both said, we're not trying to make LeBron money. We're trying to be treated fairly and get the same type of cut that the NBA players get. And Mo, what they're talking about is the percentages, the revenue share, the merchandise share, the TV contract percentage share. That's what they're looking for. And I can't speak for all WNBA players. Maybe some WNBA players feel that they should be getting $50 million out of college. If you feel that way, you're wrong. But you're allowed to feel however you want to feel. But I agree with WNBA players in the sense that if the NBA is giving, whatever, I have no idea what the number is, Mo, but if the NBA is giving 8% to the players as far as a revenue share, and the WNBA is only giving, 1.2% as a revenue share, I agree. That number should be a lot closer. Because why are the NBA players getting a bigger piece of the pie percentage-wise than the WNBA players are? If you're just asking for an equal distribution revenue share-wise, obviously your number is going to be smaller because the revenue is smaller. But if you're just asking for an equal cut, Mo, I have no issue with that, because let's not forget, if you compare these 2 leagues from last season, here the numbers are. The NBA's revenue last season, $7.4 billion with a B dollars. The WNBA was $60 million. You're never going to make NBA money when your revenue is $60 million and theirs is $7.4 billion. The average salary in the NBA coming into the season, Mo, is $6.4 million. The average salary in the WNBA is $71,000. Mo, there are mere mortals out there working mere mortal 9-to-5 jobs that make more than $70,000 a year.
This is true.
I'm just saying, like, if you are a WNBA player, even though you're getting that money pretty early in your career, you're making money that 30-year-olds are out there making, that just work in America, that just work a normal job that's not nearly as glamorous as being a professional athlete. If you're looking at the ticket prices, average ticket prices in the NBA, $89 last season. Average ticket price in the WNBA, $17.42.
Yeah, say that again.
$89 to $17.42.
Therein lies.
Average attendance, NBA games was just over 18,000. WNBA games was just under 7,000.
There it is. Look, they're going to get a boost this coming season.
Yes, they are.
And I'm 100% with you. Even though it's a smaller pie, they're probably deserving more of it. And I believe the revenue share between the NBA and the players is something like 50. It's actually really close. It's like 51-49. Which would explain the huge contracts too, right? That's all. That's all part of it. So yes, I'm with the WNBA players that they're deserving of more of their pie, but at the same time, you do have to understand the actual size of your pie. You when you say, "Well, I'm not looking for LeBron money," I would push back and go, "You guys would struggle to get, I don't know, Andrew Wiggins money, and Wiggins makes about 20 million a year." And it's not that you're not deserving talent wise; it's that your league, even though it's doing well, it's nowhere near what the NBA does in terms of revenue, ratings, and so on and so on. And maybe again, I go back to your marketing people, do a better job of marketing your stars. This window right now, if they blow this, that's on. I mean, there's such an opportunity right now. You want a bigger piece of the pie, you got to spend a little bit of money to set these players up for success, set them up for stardom, and then they can get bigger contracts. But right now, I actually get a little bit annoyed with the comparing a WNBA salary to the because you already know. You already know. Why do that? Why do that? Like they're getting over. Look how much they make compared to us. They're getting over because their pie is like 10, 20 times bigger than your pie. It's that simple.
Well, it was a couple seasons ago that Steph did his deal or re-signed his deal or was extended, and for a moment there, he was the highest paid player in the NBA. I believe he was averaging about 40 million a year with the new terms of his deal. Right around the same time that Steph's deal was done, Brittany Griner's deal was redone in the WNBA, and she became the highest paid player in the WNBA at $113,000.
Yeah, there's a huge disparity, but it's not like it's the NBA's fault, right? Like
Correct.
I'm sure there's a WNBA player going, in my league, I'm one of the 3 best players in the league, and I only make about 100 grand. In the NBA, Jaylen Brown is not one of the 10 best players in the NBA, but he's got a $300 million contract. I understand. I truly I do. But you're comparing your size to a gigantic behemoth. There's just a difference. And I thought that the NBA was supposed to help them and prop them up, and I think they have to a degree. But they can only do so much. I think they're going to get a huge boost in attendance this year, and going forward, that'll give you an idea how that pie can grow and that they can get bigger and better contracts.
100%. Great show on a Thursday, sir. Close us out.
Hey, thank you so much for joining on Kristen this morning. The Wire to Wire Network, it's growing, guys. It's growing because of you all and your support. Make sure you check out all the great content that we have, the Wire to Wire Network. We appreciate you, Wire to Wire.
We'll be back here, same time, same place tomorrow morning to close it out. We're going to talk Coach Prime and where he is saying his son and his non-son are allowed to play and not allowed to play. Kind of strange that we're trying to dictate the future of our non-children, but Coach Prime can be Coach Prime.
Right.
We're also going to predict the rest of the NBA playoffs, all of that and more. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Wire to Wire.